Okay. And just okay, so one or two more things. So this a week from Monday night, so less than a week, in 6 days, we have a women's event celebrating Rosh Chodesh Shvat. I think most people in this room are signed up, but we do have a few more spots, and we have to give in our numbers probably by today, pretty much today. So if you want to come, let us know. We'll sign you up. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a hands-on. We're making terrariums. We're having a terrarium bar. I mean, yeah, so much fun. And we're going to be learning about Shvat. So we'll do some teaching, and it'll be just be a really fun way to celebrate. On Monday night. Monday night. Yeah. 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 And Jill, she planned it. She's executing it. I'm so grateful to her. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. And we do have two new people in our class today. So shout out to Stephanie. Yay. I hope this will be the first of many. And to Margot, who changed her whole schedule around. Hold on one second. Julie, I wish I could move this out of the way. Okay, no, hold on. I think I got it. Good, all good. Okay, so Stephanie and Margot, welcome. And so, is this your first time? In person, yay. Hi, Tracy, welcome. It's so nice, so exciting. So we love it when people come to visit, and we even love it even more when they come back. So I hope, and we're kind of jumping in the middle of an ongoing, I don't know, we've been learning together since I got here every Tuesday morning. The class is called Between You and Me. It's all about interpersonal relationships. I mean, at least we started with that, and we kind of went off on a big tangent. And I almost feel like we should change the topic, the title of this class, to Sketchy Women in Tanakh. Is that like basically, because whoa, like hold on, like buckle your seatbelts for today. We've been going through all the ones that we all know about, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, like that's nice and, easy, very, it's the stories that you've grown up on. We tried to go a little bit deeper, but then we started delving into some of the characters that are not as well known. So what did we do? Last week we did Rachav the prostitute. That was very interesting. And this week we're going to aim to hit upon two women. We're actually going to hit upon three women, one that's nameless. Lori, I can't really see you. Do you want me to move over? Okay, good. Now we're good. Okay. So we're going to hit upon two Jewish women and one enemy woman. Okay. We're just, because it's all part of the same story, same part of Jewish history. And what I'd like to do, and what we keep going back to, is trying to hear the story, go a little bit deeper. So there's the story around the story. So, for example, I've learned some new information on these women today that I did not learn growing up. So there's always there's more to learn. Like it's endless. It's endless. It's like, just when you think you understand. Like, for example, I was ready to wrap up this part of our studying in the next week or two with the next couple women, and then we're done with Jewish women. Let's get back to our main topic. But this morning, when I was studying and researching, I found another 5 sketchy Jewish women in history, right? And really, so we started with the Torah, right? Torah is the 5 books of Moses. We're in the weekly book. We're up to the second book right now, where we just started the book of Shemot. But there is something larger than the Torah. It's called the Tanakh. Does anyone know what Tanakh stands for? It's an acronym. This is just a fun fact that you guys should know. Woo, Bonnie. Okay, so there's the 5 books of the Torah. There's the Nevi'im. Nevi'im are the prophets, okay? And there are many books of the prophets. Could anyone give me a name of a prophet? No. Yonah, the prophet. Give me another one, a well-known. What did you say? Elijah, the prophet. Okay, so I don't think we have a book on Elijah, but some of them have their own books. Some of them, but he's probably the most well-known, so excellent. Give me another, what? Isaiah, yes. Ezekiel, good. Jeremiah, right? There are many prophets. Okay. Habakkuk. Very good. Okay, Habakkuk, I think so, yes. We're going to try to focus on the women, okay? That's kind of what we've been doing. Obviously, the men have a lot to do with the stories, but we're trying to find the traits of the women can't avoid them completely, right? Well, it's interesting because in what I studied today about Devorah and Yael, there's the story. We'll talk about that also. There's the story that you see, and then there's what we assume is also happening in Jewish history with the men possibly being uncomfortable with some of the stories of the women, and how it's written down might impact the way that, like, the truth of the story. So we're going to try today, and I'm please Hashem, like, help me here, because I struggled through this, and I did as much research as I could do in the few hours that I had this morning to kind of understand what's actually going on and the backstory to it, because I think sometimes the small information, the 10 lines in the Tanakh might only show one story, and we have to almost use our deeper understanding to understand what might be going on in the bigger picture. Okay, so I'm asking everyone to be open-minded, right? We're not judgmental. Yes, we're a very loving group of people over here, but yes. Okay. Sesame Street? Oh, it's okay. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So I was sorry. I was started explaining. So there's the 5 books of the Torah. Then there's the Nevi'im, which we started talking about. And I'm going to actually just stop here for 1 second. When I said who are some of the Nevi'im, the prophets, everyone had great answers. No one said any women. So now I'm going to ask you a different question. Who were the women in Jewish history that had nevuah, prophecy? Okay, good. Sarah. Sarah was the first one. Who else? Miriam. Excellent. Who else? Devorah, which we're going to speak about today. Devorah Haniviah. She was actually the first one to be called the prophetess, meaning Sarah was not Sarah Haniviah. We just knew that she had prophecy from the stories because she had this insight. She knew what to do, and God even told Abraham, she knows better than you'll ever know. It's her intuition, but it's more than that. God was telling her what needed to happen. Okay, what else? Who else? There's actually 7. So I think we got a few. You guys are doing great. We got, okay. So hi, Shari. How you doing? So Judith Yehudit, very interesting character. Let's try to tie her in towards the end of the story. And she is not written in the Torah. She comes later. She's the story of Hanukkah. So Hanukkah is not written in the Torah. That was a rabbinic instituted holiday. So okay, very good. Who else? We're missing a couple. Rebecca, anyone think Rebecca had prophecy? No. So she had a great intuition. All of them did. Doesn't mean they were on the level of prophecy. Sarah was on the level. Miriam was on the level. The third one is Devorah. So you got the first 3. The fourth one, which we have not gotten to, I hope to get to her in the next few weeks, is Hannah. Hannah had prophecy. Yep. The 5th one is a woman by the name of Abigail. Okay, if this sounds familiar. The 6th one is, her name is, it's hard to even say it, Huldah. Okay, try that. Huldah, like Huldah, okay? Huldah Haniviah. So if you think of like bookcasing this part of history, Devorah was the one that brought the Jews into the lands of Canaan, and she was the one that helped fight the battle. Okay, she was the military, what do we call her? She was the military leader at that time. That was Devorah. And Huldah was the one that was there to end that part of history in Canaan. So this is when we're coming into the land of Israel. So we have Devorah and Huldah. Those are the 2 women that were the prophetesses at that time. Okay, and we're missing just one more. And this is also not a Torah one, not written in the 5 books of Torah, and not written in the Nevi'im, but it's written in the next part, because we started off saying Tanakh is an acronym for Torah, Nevi'im, which is prophets, and the third one is Ketuvim, the writings. The Megillas are in the Ketuvim, so all the Megillot, like the scrolls, and this is the scroll of Esther. Esther had prophecy. Okay, so those are the 7 prophetesses. Okay, so you guys all with me still? Okay, so we're going to speak about Yael and Devorah today. They came in the same part of history. I don't know if they knew each other so well. They weren't collaborating with each other, but Devorah puts out a prophecy and Yael fulfills the prophecy. Okay, so what is that prophecy? That there's going to be a war. She was the I don't know, the head of the war. She was the military leader, and she was the judge. Okay, and fun fact, okay, because think about it like this, you know, in our world, like who is our, you know, modern day heroine female judge that recently passed? RBG, right? I mean, she was a trendsetter. She did something that was never done before, right? I can't remember all the details on hand, but was she the first woman, the second woman to get to the Supreme Court, right? And she changed things forevermore for women, right? So in that vein, Devorah was the same. She was the first, and I don't know who came after her. It doesn't speak about any others, but she was the only, and so the first of her kind, female judge. So she was the judge for the Jewish people at that time. And she, you know, we could learn so much from her story. When we meet her for the first time, she's sitting under, does anyone know, like the famous, where is she sitting when she does her work? Yeah, I will. Where is she sitting? Under that? Under a tree. What kind of a tree? It's called the Tomer Devorah, like the palm tree. And that was like the very famous, like the picture of Devorah is her outdoors sitting under the tree. What does this, like, let's go down from thousands of years ago, because this is in the times of the Jewish people entering the land of Canaan, which was like the land of Israel, but they had to conquer it. Okay, so does that give you like kind of like a picture of a frame of mind? Okay, so it's before the temples. We have tabernacles that are traveling with us. We're just entering, like we sent in the spies, right? Spies go in, spies go out. Now we have to go in, we need to conquer the land. She leads the military war against the Canaanim to capture it and to make it our own. Okay, and she's victorious. So let's go from thousands of years ago, this trendsetter of a woman, to today's day and age, right? If only psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, educators would have used her methods and been totally transparent and okay, how do I say this? Like, so much happens behind closed doors. Okay, right? A lot of bad things happen behind closed doors, a lot of allegations, a lot of, right, the whole Me Too movement, everything happens behind closed doors. And sometimes we don't know what's the story. Is it is it real? I mean, anyone could say anything about anybody, right? So from the very, very beginning, she's teaching us, if you want to be working one-on-one with people, there should be no seclusion. Seclusion is dangerous. She was judging men, she was judging women, she was working with children, she was working with adolescents, she was helping people with their marriages, she was helping people with their divorces. She was doing all the work that a leader does. But there was such an openness to the way she worked that there would never, God forbid, be any allegations against her. Okay, she was a very smart woman, right? Yeah.
Moses was doing, but
yeah.
Hey, you
Right.
and use divorce.
Doing it all. She was a powerhouse of a woman. Okay, so we're going to go to her story. Yes, question. Right. Probably took a lot of humility. She had what they didn't have. She had, I mean, first of all, she had prophecy. So they had nothing to, they couldn't fight and say, well, you know, I mean, God was literally giving her messages and she had to, a lot of humility. For sure. Right. 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 So I'm gonna start from the beginning of the story, and we're gonna touch upon a lot of these things because you do see the little bit of like back and forth. Like she does try to put down the men around her. They try to undermine her. Like it's not smooth sailing, but she knows what she needs to do and she steps into it. I don't know if it was her nature, but a lot of the people, and actually if anyone's coming to the class tonight, the class is called Choosing Your Destiny. And we're going to speak about how to overcome your lot, your mazel, what Hashem gave you, because we do believe in mazel and how things align up in the stars and how a Jewish person could still overcome and change what's their destiny. So that's, stay tuned. That was a little commercial break for tonight. 7:30, come back. Okay, so now back to the storyline. So whenever God gives us prophets, chances are it's because the Jewish people are not in a very good place. We need prophecy to keep us on the straight and narrow, okay? So we basically have this ebb and flow in our history, like things are going great, we're prosperous, we're safe. So we say, oh, it's all us. Like, look at us, we're so successful, we're so good. And what do we forget? God, okay? And when that happens, what does God do? Puts an enemy upon us that threatens to destroy us. And God needs to keep giving us prophets and people to pull us back on the straight and narrow so that God wants us to get to the finish line. But our history has been like, we're good and we forget God. Then we go into a very dark time in our history and we're like crying out for God. And it's basically up and down, just about, I mean, we spoke about this on Shabbat, every 70 to 80 years in Jewish history. If you plug in our history, it's every 70 to 80 years, which should be petrifying for all of us, right? Because 80 years ago, our people were being led into the gas chambers in Auschwitz, right? That wasn't such a long time ago. And we are living it with so much freedom and prosperity. And have we forgotten God? The majority of the Jewish people, who's God, right? I remember once telling my friend, I was teaching her, you guys, well, I was just trying to think who might know her. No, oh, Shari. Do you remember the beautiful redhead on our bus recently? My friend Renee. So when she's like a strong woman. And I just met her recently and she grew up with very like no Jewish through and through, both her parents, like she's a Jewish woman. But I remember like teaching her about Hashem, right? God. And she said to me, who? Like, we have forgotten. We have gone so far. I mean, thank God, like she knows Hashem now. But who? Like, who even is that? So that is our history of getting so comfortable that we forget what it's all about. We forget what we're doing here. And then God needs to wake us up and remind us, which has been a very, very painful history for the Jewish people. So here we are. The Jewish people are not doing too well. We started serving idols, right? It's always been something else. So we're serving idols at this time, and Devorah is put in position to come and to pull us back onto the straight and narrow. And obviously there's going to be a wake-up call because there's going to be enemies that want to destroy us. And she now needs to step up and to fight and to lead the Jewish people in fighting our enemies. Okay, so it's a hard time. So so that's the wake-up call. There's a lot going on, and Devorah is trying her best. She's working day and night, sitting under that palm tree to help the Jewish people and to get them back to a strong place. So interesting fact. Okay, so this Tomer, it's called the Tomer Devorah, which is the palm tree of Devorah. Okay, so it's actually, we all think, everyone, myself included, I thought it's named after her. Right? Wouldn't you think? The palm tree of Devorah. So actually there was another Devorah in Jewish history that came hundreds of years before her. And she was actually buried under that palm tree. And it's very interesting. Do you know who it is? Her name is Devorah. She is let's go back to the beginning with Sarah. Then we had Rebecca. Okay, do you remember the story of Rebecca? She was 3 years old when she leaves to go to become Yitzchak's wife. Like when she goes with Eliezer, she's 3 when she goes with him, because had she stayed with her father, her father was a terrible guy. And it was right, you guys remember this, going back a few months ago when we learned the whole story? So Rebecca had a nursemaid. Her name was Devorah, and she was actually buried under this tree. And these 2 women are very, very different. Okay, Devorah is she's a paradigm of power, of being like an outward woman, and the other Devorah is a paradigm of quietness and hardly noticeable. We hardly know anything about her except for the fact that she was Rebecca's nursemaid, was a very nurturing, very different personality type. And there's such a contrast between these 2 Devorahs in Jewish history, right? And yet they take these 2 and the hundreds of years that lay between the 2, right? One who's such an influencer and a judge, and then the other one who has the qualities of compassion and understanding, just like a nursemaid, like just a motherly woman. And they bring them both together. There's something there in this message that we're going to hopefully bring to the end of the story. When we get to the end, we're going to see how there's a message there in the essence of who these 2 women are, and possibly what the traits or the underlying, maybe the essence of them really was, because maybe we could find a little bit of femininity. Let's keep our eyes open for some femininity and some nurturing and some mothering from Devorah, because we don't see it outwardly. We're not finding that. We're seeing her as a warrior and doing what she needs to do and leading the army. We don't see there's nothing feminine about that. Okay. So, so she is introduced to us as 3 things. And this is kind of, how we all have our priorities. So like, what are you first? Are you American first, or are you Jewish first? Like, how do you describe yourself? So she describes herself very clearly in this way. Number 1, she's a prophet. Okay, that is her identity. Number 2, she is a wife. And number 3, she is a judge. She could never get away from her prophecy, by the way. Like, it's not something she chose. You don't run after becoming a prophet. It chooses you. So that was between her and God. That is her and herself. She knew who she was. She was a prophetess. Then comes her marriage, and then comes everyone else, which also nice lesson in prioritizing. Okay, her work did not come before her family. Okay, and okay, now let's talk about her husband. We have to talk about him. Okay, so does anyone know who she's married to? What his name? He has a few names, a few different names. So when he goes to war, he's referred to as Barak, the general Barak, and we see a lot of weakness with her husband, because he actually says to his wife, "I'll only go to war if you come with me." He's literally scared to go with her. She's the spiritual force. They know that they can't fight this war naturally, right? They were fighting an army that was very, very strong. They actually had, it's written in the song, because this is all brought down in the book of Shoftim, Judges, which is part of the Tanakh, okay? The story is written down, and she writes, there's a song, it's called Shirat Devorah. I think it's written by King David, brought down, but there are 2 chapters in the song that speak about all the details of the story. So chapter 4 and chapter 5 in the book of Shoftim is called Shirat Devorah. Has anyone heard the Song of Devorah? It's almost like a poetry slam. It's pretty amazing. And she talks, all the details come out in that song. Okay. And okay, so let's talk about her husband for a second. Barak, who hides behind his wife. And she literally says to him, like, this is kind of like, the story that like maybe they didn't want it to be publicized, but she basically says, like, man up, like get it together. She literally says that. And you know how we know she says that? Because she prophesizes and tells her husband that they're going to be victorious, but the victory is actually not going to come through him. He's like the general. He's going off. He's like, this is not like the pep talk you would think you would be giving the general. Like, you'd be like, you're going to do it. Win, win, win. Fight, fight, fight. Like, no, she's like,
go fight your war. God is going to help us succeed. But just know that the actual victory is going to come through the hands of a woman. Okay, let that sit. How does he feel about that? How does he feel about that? 'Cause Emasculated, okay. Could you imagine? Right? I mean, even if that happened nowadays, I think it would still be, but we're talking like many years ago, women were not seen, right? They were in the tents. This was very, I don't know, it was very progressive. So she's basically saying, and he is emasculated, like meaning he's too afraid to go to war without her. So he's hiding behind her, and she's like, okay, you could hide behind me, but just know, like, it's gonna come through you. Like you'll go, you'll fight, you'll be victorious. But sorry, it's not gonna come through you. The victory, the final blow will come through a woman. Okay. And by these words, I assume it's gonna come through her, but it's not. That's where the second woman will come in, Yael. Okay, so hold on to your seats. I know, it's very exciting. Okay, this is the part of the story that I actually love the most. Okay, and this is the part that I remember from when I learned this when I was a teenager. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the part that has stuck with me through all these years, because when we speak about Jewish women, we try to find their intuition. That, it started with the first Jewish woman, Sarah, when God says, Abraham, she has Bina Yetera. She has more intuition than you'll ever have. Listen to her words. Shema Bekola. Listen to her, Abraham. She knows what she's talking about. And Abraham has no choice but to send away his son Yishmael and to listen to his wife, right? That's the first time that God makes it so clear women have an extra dose of intuition, right? And if you remember from the lessons we learned months ago, that when we go back to Adam and Chava, first man and woman, Adam and Eve, when they were created as one, and then God puts Adam to sleep, takes out a rib from within him, and it says, Vayi then, and he built woman from inside of him. So man now is forever incomplete without woman. He's always missing, because she came from him. She is now separate to him. So he's always incomplete. And that's why the Torah says it's not good for man to be alone. Man does not do very well alone. And that's why it says, I know. I was just having this. I have a son that's 18 years old. Okay. And I know, like, he has a journey ahead of him. He's studying in Israel now, but we were on the phone this week and we were talking to some of his friends that are starting to date and get married, like 20, 21 years old. I know, it's pretty crazy. So we were talking about this, and I said to him, and he's like, oh, I have a long way to go. I'm not interested for many years. And I said, but don't you feel like you want a woman in your life? And we were having this conversation, and I brought up, like, isn't man like empty without a woman? And I'm in this freezer section of Jewel when we're having this conversation, and I'm saying to him, what was it? It was such a funny conversation. I said, like, aren't guys that are like without a woman in their life, like eating like leftover pizza that's like, stale on the couch? Like, I was giving him all the stereotypes, and he's like, mom, like, no, like, we're fine. But we were having this conversation of, a man needs a woman in his life. That's what the Torah says. It's not good. It says lo tov. It's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make him an ezer kenegdo, a woman that could push him, could help him because he needs help, and could also oppose him. Okay, and that's like a whole lesson on its own. Oh, yeah, so much fun. When you're on your AirPods, right, and you're like, okay.
In the kosher section.
It was just in this one. I've never been to West Rogers. I'd be like, okay, so now let's go back to her intuition and what she does with her husband. Okay, seems to me that her husband is a little bit of a schlemazel. Okay, first of all, let's just call a spade a spade. She's this amazing woman, and he's afraid to go to war. Like, meaning he's supposed to be this military guy, but he's too afraid. He's hiding behind his wife. And chances are it seems to me like he just doesn't have it so together.
Got mommy issues.
He does. Well, we're going to see that again. in the end of the story, because there's a lot of mommy issues over here with some of the other characters. So hold on to that also, Margot. Okay, so this is the storyline that I love. This is what I heard years ago, and I love it. She used her intuition to build her husband up from a nobody into a somebody. So his real name is Barak, that's his military name, which actually means lightning, okay? But she's referred to as Eshet Lapidot. Eshet is the wife. Lapidot also could mean lightning. It could also mean wicks, the wife of the man of the wicks. Okay, what does this mean? So this is the most beautiful part. He was not such a, he didn't aspire for greatness. He was a regular Joe Schmo, and she was this superstar. And what she did was she used her womanly intuition. And probably when she was sitting there under the palm tree and she had a break in between clients or in between judging or whatever she was doing all day and night, she had a basket and she would make wicks. She would twine and braid or whatever she was doing. She would make wicks. She would have a basket. She kept filling up her basket. And every time she had enough wicks, she would call her husband over and say, do you mind bringing this to the tabernacle? Because she knew that he was doing nothing with his time. And he was hanging out with not such great people, probably people that were more busy with idol worship. And she knew that if she gets her husband to, to oh, you're helping me so much. If you could just deliver this to me every single day, she's creating them and saying, go over to the tabernacle. All of a sudden, her husband is not a Joe Schmo. He's hanging out with people in the tabernacle. His whole world has shifted. So she uses her womanly intuition to literally create a great man. It's pretty amazing. It's fascinating how she even has the time, the I don't know, the foresight to. She's probably not like, it's not like she, where's Paula with her crocheting? We always have Paula crocheting over here, but I don't know if it was like her hobby per se, but she knew if she creates this and asks so nicely and makes it seem like he's doing her the biggest favor. I mean, she was doing him the biggest favor, because he becomes a great person because of who he now affiliates himself with. Who you hang around is who you become. So she literally creates this great guy. Isn't that amazing? Love that. Love that lesson over here. And that's the wisdom of women. Chochmat Nashim Banta Beta, the wisdom of women builds her home. She built her home using her deep knowledge and intuition and understanding, and she created this great guy. So that's her and her husband. Eshet Lapidot, there's a lot about fire. We definitely see there's a fire in her. She has fire, she has passion. She's a woman of the torches, but she's only described in those terms as the wife of, okay? So we know she has all that fire and passion on her own, but she uses, like, I don't know, she's able to take a back seat to push him, to build him to become something great. Love that. Okay, so yes. Yeah, yeah. No, no, Yair Lapid is someone in the Knesset, one of the government officials in Israel. Yeah, I mean, maybe Lapid is a torch. It's a torch. So yeah, there you have it. I wonder if there's like a, I don't know if it was passed down for all these years, but very good. So Lapid is a torch, and there's lots of different ways of describing this man: the man of the torch, the man of the fire, the man of the wicks. His military name is Barak, but Barak means lightning. Okay, but all of his energy comes from his wife. That's what it seems like. Okay, so very good. So they go to this military. Oh wow, it's getting late. I'm gonna have to fast track a little bit. Okay, so she declares, she prophesizes that they're going to be victorious, but it's going to be through a woman. Okay, and they go to war together. He only goes, as I said, if she agrees to accompany him. And clearly there's like a little bit of like, he's too scared to go without her because she is the power, right? He knows it. I mean, she's built him up to be a great person, but there is this fear that he has. Okay, now we're going to enter Yael into the scene. Okay, so the war is fought. It's amazing. Prophecy is there, right? He kills out all the Canaanim except for one. By the way, when does this happen again in the Torah? That the Jews go and they fight a war and they leave one person. Which nation? Do you know this? Amalek. Amalek. And from that one person, it keeps growing. It's right. And God says you have to wipe them out completely. But out of compassion or whatever, they don't kill them out completely. So once again, they have won the war, except for the head of the army, and his name was Sisera. Okay, so Sisera is now on the run. Okay, so now I'm going to enter scene 2 of this incredible unfolding story. So there is a man and a woman, a married couple, Yael and Heber. Okay, these two people were on the outskirts of the Jewish community. It wasn't so clear. It's kind of, I was like thinking about it. It's like me living in Deerfield. Like I like being involved in West Rogers, but I kind of like coming home to Deerfield also. Like I would say like I'm the best of both worlds, So they were kind of like that. They were on the outskirts. It wasn't so clear that they were like so strongly aligned with the Jewish community. So they were kind of like, they had a foot in each world and it was unclear. Okay. So they kept apart. They lived separate from the rest of the Jewish nation. And this man, Heber, was a diplomat and a powerful person. And he was friends with Sisera. Okay. So there's this army, there's the enemy army. Sisera is the man that's now on the run. He's the head of the general, and they did not kill him. He ran away. He escapes on foot. He's the only one that is not killed. So he sees Yael. Yael is like the wife of his friends, like, someone that, they do business together. They're diplomats. They're whatever. They've had connections, political alliances. And he feels that Yael is a safe person because she's not fully immersed in the Jewish community. They're on the outskirts. She'll help me. We're friends. I'm friends with her husband, right? She'll take me in. She'll hide me because he's running for his life. So Yael is just this nice Jewish woman who is very, very smart. And she's probably petrified because what do? You're going to, she is a Jewish woman harboring the Hitler of that time. By the way, he was a terrible, terrible man. And we'll understand this when I describe the end of the story with his mother. Okay, we're going to understand this. Hold on. I hope No. You're okay. Hold his mother because I don't want to forget this. Okay, so basically the story is that Sisera runs over, sees Yael, says, "Please hide me, please save me." She takes him into her tent. By the way, beginning of the story when I spoke about Yael being out there in the open, right? How that's a very important thing. It's actually a law in Judaism that a man and a woman are not allowed to have. We call it yichud. Yichud is seclusion. So right away, something is off. Man and woman in an empty tent, seclusion happening, right? Her husband's not home. They're not married. This is already getting like, how is this going to end? Well, it's not going to end really well for him. So don't jump ahead, Sue. Okay. So he seeks refuge with Yael, and he says, "Please, can you give me some water?" So she's a smart woman, and we're going to connect this back to the story of Yehudit, Judith, okay? Remember that story, okay? So she says, I don't have some water handy, but I have some milk. Gives him milk, same story from Yehudit, because she gives him dairy, and then it's salty, and right, her story. Okay, so hold on to that story. She gives him milk, he gets sleepy, and it's very, very interesting. The commentaries that I found this morning, some of them were how do I say, there are definitely some sexual overtones that you hear in the storyline, okay? Like it says, for example, that she covered Sisera. And well, she covers him. I don't think he was naked, but like he falls asleep, she covers him. But some of the commentaries that I found this morning said that she covered him with her body, meaning they had intercourse. Like and it's not exactly, it's not brought down. It's a scandal. It's a what do we? A shanda. It's a total shanda. Okay, it's very suggestive. No, nothing to do with that. And don't get me more off track. Hold on. Oh, okay. Okay, someone comes to her tent and they're looking for him, right? He's a fugitive, he's on the run. Someone comes to the tent and says, "Is there a man here?" And she says, "None." In her mind, the commentary says, in her mind, he's a little boy. Oh, talk about that, okay? He is a little boy looking for some motherly help, right? Cover me, hide me, feed me, could you give me something to drink, right? He is literally a child in her eyes. She's like, there's no man here, right? And the story goes on to say, so she gives him to drink, he falls into a deep sleep. She takes a tent peg and a hammer, and in a striking act of courage, she drives the peg through Sisera's head, okay? Into the ground, killing him, okay? You know, okay, the only thing I could relate to this, like, you know, when, okay, I'm such a baby and I'm afraid of like everything. And like, if like there's no one brave enough in my house to do it, and there's like a bug, I'm like, like, as far as like, seriously, Sherry, like, I will like be like, okay, that's okay, but she, you know, like, she basically, like, he's covered, she has a tent peg, he's sleeping, and she takes the tent peg. Now, there's so many questions that I have. Why didn't she take his sword? Why use a tent peg? Such an unconventional way of killing somebody, right? So no, she wasn't a vampire. She was a nice Jewish married woman. Okay. Oh, did he take advantage of her? That's a good question. So by the end of the story, we're gonna understand that he was, yes, he and okay. So get this. I'm gonna okay. This is this is what's brought down. Some sages say that what this woman did for the Jewish people was, okay, get this, far greater than all the other matriarchs' contribution. I know. Okay, this is what some say, that what Yael did for the nation is even greater. Why? So she says that he was violating women. So what we understand from the last part of the Shira Tzavora is, enter the third woman on the scene, which is Sisera's mother. Okay, so now what does a mother loves their son no matter what, even if they're a piece of dreck, right? You love your son, you think he's the best. So here is this woman waiting, she's waiting. Okay, the scene in the song is the mother waiting by the window for her son to return from battle. And she's waiting and she's waiting. And she's watching through the window, she's getting worried, right? And she's asking people that have come and gone from war, like, where is her son? And the answer that she got from the women around her is, it was intended to comfort her. So this shows what would bring someone comfort. I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful, it's shameless, it's vulgar, that they're comforting the women in her culture, their way of comforting the men, the women. She's with the women, Sisera. Okay, so she's with the women, otherwise she would be dead, right? Okay, but no, it was the men. The battle was just finishing. Okay, I don't know what was going to happen to the booty, to all that, but listen to this. They're comforting, the people from her culture comforting, says that, don't worry, he's coming soon. He's still looting. He's still taking and enjoying the sport of molesting and assaulting all the women that they found, right? Repulsive. So she's like, oh, good, that sounds good, right? No, seriously, she's like, oh, I have comfort now, because he's just molesting and raping and bringing, taking the spoils of war. And so that brings her comfort. I mean, such a disgrace. And this just gives us a glimpse into the enemies of Israel, that was their values. They had no value for life. And if you think about it, the wars that we fought, they exactly, there was never any value for life. To contrast that with something, that the Israeli Defense Force. And there's plenty of people that will speak badly about the IDF. There's plenty of people that believe Israel doesn't have a right to defend themselves. But anyone that is connected to anyone that has fought in the army will tell you that the way that they operate, their top priority is peace, and value of life. That's how they make all their decisions. And it's hard decisions to go into Gaza to retrieve a dead body of a soldier. I mean, but it's always life and peace, life and peace. That's how they operate. We could be so proud to stand behind such a moral army. And of course, armies make mistakes. I'm sure there are many mistakes, but I truly believe that they operate from a very, very good place. This is not how this enemy army was. And I'll tell you the quote in the book, the Shirat Zevora, the Song of Zevora. The quote over here is, "A womb or two for each man's head." Terrible. Like, it was a disgraceful way of talking about the women, that a womb or two, every man would have 2 women to take into captivity with him. And it was just a disgraceful way to be speaking about women. So over here, there's a tit for tat going on. Bye, Mara. So good to see you. There's a tit for tat going on, which is very often how God works. Maybe it's God's like sense of humor or something. But you know, when someone does something wrong, like, they're kind of repaid in the same way. So over here, this mother is expecting her son to be able to sexually violate captive women, and instead he becomes a woman's captive. Okay? And Yael, when it says that Yael did so much for the Jewish women, even more than other matriarchs did, what it's saying is that she prevents further raping and all the terrible things of Israelite women. So she puts an end to that by ending his life right then and there. Okay. Yes, question?
She also drives the stake through his head. If he's the last man standing, he could then go back to and down the highway, and then they'd have them again.
Right.
They'd have the Canaanites.
Yeah.
And if they're, as I remember thinking of him,
Yeah.
because he was also raping women.
Right.
We
Right.
don't let men rape women.
No, we don't. Okay, so yeah, there definitely is a story there. Okay, so I want to, we're going to have a few more minutes. I do want to close up the story. So there's a couple important things to know. So one, when she describes herself in the Song of Devorah, there are lots of ways that you would imagine this woman could say about herself. She could say she's a warrior. She could say she's fearless. She could say whatever. I'm talking about Devorah over here. And what it says, her quote about herself is ... And this is in 5:7 in the story, the 5th chapter. It says, "Until I arose, Devorah, as a mother of Israel." Okay, that's the way she describes herself. Now, it's really, really interesting to note that she doesn't have any children. It doesn't say anything about her actually being a mother of children, but she sees herself as a mother, a fierce, almost like a lioness of the Jewish people. Okay. Now, in her, because we all struggle with balance, you know, our masculine qualities, our feminine qualities, how much we do, how much we're home, how much I think every single person is always like, am I doing enough? Like, when you're here, you think you need to be there. Like, we're all complex. So it's interesting that I see an inner struggle with Devorah, with her femininity. That's what I see. And I see that as the reason why she didn't kill him with a sword. And that's why she took a domestic item and killed him in that way. I think it was a statement. Okay, both of them. There's something over here with the women, because they're both very fierce, outwardly warrior type of women. And there's this kind of struggle going on with who are they? And who are they really in their essence, right? Think of like going back to that Devorah from the palm tree of Devorah, this other Devorah in history that had such a different story. It's almost like we're trying to merge the two and find what our true essence and our real path has to be. So, okay, so let's just put that down there to think about. I think we could relate to that in many ways. So there is a Jewish teaching. It's one of, I think it's actually a mitzvah in the Torah, a negative mitzvah, like a prohibition, right? That you should not, a man should not wear the clothing of a woman, and a woman should not wear the clothing of a man. Okay, we call it, well, we call it in today's generation, yeah, or not even trans. I wouldn't cross-dressing. Okay? There's something there that speaks about cross-dressing. Interesting. And over here, and how we kind of bring that down, because I'm not getting into that. I'm not going there. Okay. And anyways, nowadays, what does it even mean to wear clothing of a man? I mean, like, are those, I mean, like, right. Like, what in our society, how does that even work when it's so gender fluid, right? Jeans, right? All of that. Pants. Back in the day, wearing pants was considered, we call it kli gever, the vessel, the clothing of a man. Okay. So, and there's, this is a very fascinating topic that's, you know, it's, yeah, I'm not even going to go there because I wouldn't even know how to go into it in our generation because so much has changed. And what used to be like considered inappropriate for a woman is totally acceptable nowadays, right? There is blurred. So that's actually why we'll always wear skirts. Like, you won't have an Orthodox woman wearing pants. And this, it's just for this mitzvah, kli gever. Okay. So where it comes into being super, super complicated is really kli gever. It's not so much about the skirts or the pants. I mean, do you really think that's what it's about? You think yes. Well, it's become that in our generation. But what it's really, really about, is weapons. It's weapons, okay? That, no, I missed it. I missed it. Tell me. Was it Bonnie? Yeah.
By a woman of a very, all of them look that where their legs end and that look and they go, I'm like that. So, okay, so.
Okay. Like the X-rated class. Like come to the X-rated, like shoe saver. Okay, so let's pull it back and let's close it up. Let's close it up. Okay. So what it has to do with, whether it's skirts or pants or whatever it is, kli gever is weapons. Okay, so where this comes down in practicality today is that, according to the Torah, it wouldn't be acceptable for a woman to wear weapons. Okay, so this is where it gets very complicated, because yeah, it is, because nowadays, I mean, you have women fighting in the army, right? So this is, but that, when was the first time a woman fought in battle?
Yeah, used a weapon, killed.
Yes, she did, but she didn't. No, yeah, Elle used a tent peg.
Now, that certainly was a weapon.
Interesting to note. I don't know the exact timeline, but I think it's a couple of hundred years later, because this is when they're entering the land. So this is already when they leave and they're taking, you know, the story of Hanukkah. So this is the next, like a while later, I don't know how many years, but Yehudit, who also kills the general, How does she kill him?
And
She
why?
cuts his head off with his sword. So there is a little bit of like things are changing, right? And nowadays you go to Israel, you see women with their guns. Okay. So there is, it is interesting. Like, so she's the first woman to really be out there in this public way, killing the general, but she does it intentionally with something from her home. I think there's a message there. Okay. Yeah. So this is very, very important. I'm going to close with this, but let this be the takeaway. Okay. So okay. There are rules. There's 613 laws to abide by. Okay. But what overrides all of them? What overrides everything in Judaism? Life, right? To save a life, the value of life overrides everything, right? That's very, very clear. So self-defense it always takes priority, right? And in the Torah, the words are, im ba lahargecha, if someone comes to kill you, hashkem lahargo, you kill them first. Self-defense. This is such a huge value in Judaism. So over here, we see that this woman is, if she needed to, she could use any weapon necessary, right? She could do whatever she needed to do. She was in a very, very delicate, dangerous situation. But what she's taking, by taking the tool that she took, she's also honoring, in a way, this is just what we're assuming, okay? She's honoring her primary role as a nurturer, as a woman, okay? And yeah, it is very interesting. So these two women, Devorah and Yael, they're eternal models that feminine does not mean weak. Feminine roles are not weaker. Though we have different roles, that, definitely there are different roles out there, it doesn't mean we're not capable of doing whatever it takes to get the job done. And I think I heard this from Lori Palatnik in one of her videos, Lori Almost Live. She said, like, when we think about women, like, the way our kids grow up with like Disney characters and the princess in distress, and like there's always like, you have to save her, like she always has to be saved. And it's like the fairy tale. She's like, if it was a movie about Jewish women, the theme song would be Taking Care of Business. Right? Like, that's always what it is. It's like, it is. So rather than taking up arms, Yael construes an unconventional murder in an effort to preserve her connection. She's preserving something. There's something she's holding on to while she's doing what she needs to do. She's conserving her connection to this divine source of her femininity, something she's struggling with. And at the heart of this, and at the heart of who she is, she's like holding on to, like, her situation and something that she grapples with in her life. And they demonstrate the spectrum of possibility for feminism. It's like this, it's a very wide spectrum, and it's become so much wider, but they are now widening the realm of what it means to be a Jewish woman.
That's
So
sort of like me too.
totally like you. So I'm going to end with that story. Oh, yeah. So any questions just to close up this chapter? It's quite fascinating. Yes.
Perhaps she was him, recovered him. Maybe that was her way then of also taking back control of all the women that he has. And that
Right,
she
right.
did that, and then she killed him.
Right. So it's not clear, like, if he was, aggressive with her, or if this was her intuition, which was very, like, for the sake of heaven. She clearly had a plan in killing this guy. So she did what she needed to do. Same with Yehudi. She slept with the general. She fed him cheeses. She did what she needed to do. And she was held to be one of like a righteous, pious woman. So it's sometimes like you need to do things that are, you know, not what you would usually do, but you know, you give them all the space
A
to,
little milk, a little sex, and then you kill them.
yeah, crazy. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Was it
To do that.
already?
Oh, she totally knew she was, he knew who she was. He thought she could trust her.
So they had elevators. You know that elevator.
Right. Right, right.
She wanted to do it herself.
The part about her saying there's no man here and that the commentary saying like she didn't see him as like a strong person, she saw him as a coward. I think, I mean, clearly if she took him in and thought, I got this, like she wasn't afraid of him. She really saw him as someone weaker than her. Yeah, yeah. I mean, clearly she had a lot of divine, like, where does confidence come from? How does someone get the confidence? She had chutzpah. This is holy chutzpah, but she had a certain confidence knowing Hashem is with her. It's going to be okay. And could you imagine how petrifying it is? I mean, he's a murderer.
I mean, I'll make the story. I mean, we're all laughing and it's very funny.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's
the
petrifying.
Sexual, but if you tell it for her and
Right.
see that she had God's
Right.
in her mind.
Yeah.
It's a story.
Right. And I was blown away seeing that her contribution to Jewish women was far greater than the matriarchs. Like, I don't know, like I was like, whoa, like you don't even think it gets greater than the matriarchs. So that, I mean, it's greatness on so many different levels. And at one of my events last week, I asked a question. I said, what does a Jewish woman look like? And everyone's like, you know, this, that, whatever. Like we think of like our great grandmothers lighting the Shabbat candles as being like a strong Jewish woman, right? Like many, many people, maybe not so much in our generation, but it's interesting to like, there's no two Jewish women that look the same. You know, one of them is Sarah. Sarah was a paradigm of modesty. And this woman was a paradigm of bravery and chutzpah, right? And they're both held like on equal footing as powerful, determined trendsetters of the Jewish people. It kind of widens our perspective. Yeah. Regina.
I was gonna say, was this a
Totally.
killing
Yeah.
Jewish
Right.
people? So maybe-
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Right.
Right.
Well, you didn't
Yeah.
mention it anyway.
Right. Right.
I'm just wondering. And
Mhm.
how.
Mm,
And, as he,
right.
and so. Story, but you know. Right. Of Naomi and Boaz,
Mm,
and I was. Which has covered them.
mm.
They're like,
Yeah, like his feet, right? Well, I think it says in that story that she uncovered him.
they had.
Yeah,
I mean
there
that.
is something there. We'll do that. I think we'll do that next week.
I think
Yeah,
that
I'll
there
look
might
into
be
that.
in
Yeah.
parallel.
Well, there's a lot of parallels between all of these stories. Like there are, because
So the women use. And, not all of them leave. But that's how women know. Parcel goes. But that's how. Here's women using their intuition,
mm,
that they know
mm.
that they can get back.
It really, I mean, it's a longer conversation that we're not going to have right now, but think about it. If women, like the sexual power without it in the world, what would our world look like? Like seriously, would any man choose to have a child and to be responsible and to settle down? It's almost like the carrot, like Right. And so nowadays, in this new generation, when people are not getting married as often or as early, or it's a very different dating scene nowadays than it was 20 years ago.
Yep.
So people are much more commonly opting not to have children, right? It's a rising phenomenon that's happening. So think about it like this, right? Like, why would they have children? You don't have to, you get all the fringe benefits of being with a woman without the commitment. Like, commitment is something that God put into the world as like a man and woman committed to each other. Like, we have come so far away from that nowadays.
Sometimes it is. All the better. No, it's their son, is actually their name
Right.
is Junior.
That's
Their
a
son's
beautiful
from the
thing. It's a beautiful thing to
They
see,
did
to see your offspring, or to know that you're leaving a
a
legacy in the world. So that for sure. But I don't know if there wasn't the sexual energy, I don't know if they would rise to that legacy.
So it's
Yeah, it's just interesting. I don't have any answers, but I wonder what the world is going to look like in another generation or two.
sort of a-
Is it?
yeah, because they're pendulum.
Yeah.
Just like the 70s stuff. They talk about, yeah, God, but he force and the- I mean,
Right.
all the way
Right. Yeah. Anyways, please God. Anyways, it's so good to see you guys, and thank you for coming on, Nan and Margaret and Judy, Sophia, Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.